Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. We are so excited. This is our special Valentine's Day episode, and we are going to be making delicious red velvet cookies. So I'm super excited to share this recipe with you. Before we get started, I have to give a huge thank you and shout out to all my subscribers. For those of you that saw last week's Chicken and Dumplings episode, we have had such a tremendous response. Within a few days, we had 10 times more views on that episode than we normally have on how our episodes track. So a huge thank you to everybody that was following Chicken and Dumplings. I got several messages from people that made the recipe that were so excited. So it makes the Consummate Host so happy to know that we are giving people ideas and resources to create beautiful experiences for your guests. So, as I said, today we're making red velvet cookies, the perfect treat for Valentine's Day. Let's get started. So as you know, in the spirit of the Consummate Host, we try to make things as easy and accessible as possible to ensure your success at being a host. So, as I mentioned in our last episode with Chicken and Dumplings, simple ingredients. So I love this recipe because these are, as I said, red velvet cookies, but the recipe is based off of using a box of red velvet cake mix. So this is a Duncan Hines red velvet cake mix. This is 13 ounces. So that's the base of the recipe. And then there's just 3 other ingredients that go into it. We have a half a cup of vegetable oil, 2 large eggs, and then the recipe calls for half of an 11-ounce package of chocolate chips, which is roughly a cup. So that's all of our ingredients. A boxed red velvet cake mix, half a cup of oil, 2 large eggs, and a cup of chocolate chips. So let's make some cookies. Okay, so we're about to put together the dough mixture for our cookies. I forgot one ingredient on the introduction. So on top of the cookies, we have a Reese's white chocolate peanut butter filled heart. So that's kind of like the final ingredient. And then we're also gonna do a sprinkle of pink sugar on top. So I just wanted to mention that before we start putting the mix together. So let's make some cookies. Okay, so as I mentioned, the recipe is based on a box of red velvet cake mix. So that'll be the first thing we put into our mix. All right, and then we have our half cup of vegetable oil and our 2 large eggs. All right, so we'll drop our stand mixer down in, and I usually like to mix with something like this when you're starting with this amount of dry ingredients. I usually like to mix on a medium to medium low. That way you're not kind of tossing your dry ingredients around as you mix. So let's get this mixing. All right, we've just about got it mixed. I'm gonna go ahead and add just a little bit of red food coloring to my mixture. This is an option, you don't have to do it. Sometimes people are funny about adding, additives or colorings, but I wanna just make sure we get that deep, rich red color. So I'm using a gel food coloring, and I'm gonna put in probably the equivalent of maybe 8 or 10 drops. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that. And now we'll finish mixing. All right, so we've got our dough mixture mixed. Now we're going to fold in the chocolate chips. And I can't help but think I'm a huge Schitt's Creek fan. And I know recently the meme and the clips of the amazing scene where David and Moira are making enchiladas in their kitchen. And the recipe instructions are to fold in the cheese. Let's take a look.
Next step is to fold in the cheese.
What does that mean? What does fold in the cheese mean?
You fold it in.
I understand that, but how do you fold it? Do you fold it in half like a piece of paper and drop it in the pot, or what do you do?
David, I cannot show you everything.
Okay, well, can you show me one thing?
Here's what you do. You just fold it in.
Okay, I don't know how to fold broken cheese like that.
I don't know how to be any clearer. You take that thing that's in your hand, and you...
If you say fold in one more time.
Yes, fold it in.
This is your recipe. You fold in the cheese then.
Don't you dare.
You fold it in.
David!
Okay, so I'm gonna demystify folding. So typically, when you fold something in is when you're adding an ingredient to like a stiff mixture, like a dough or a really thick batter. That's folding, versus stirring, which is when you're adding an ingredient to like a liquid mixture. So there's folding demystified. So we're gonna fold in our chocolate chips. Okay, we have successfully folded in our chocolate chips into our cookie dough mixture. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees, bake 350 degrees, and then you'll want to get your cookie sheet with your parchment paper on it. That's what we're going to put the dough onto to bake. Now, I know in the world of social media, YouTube, there is, we all strive for perfection in what we do. I've learned with this particular dough mixture, it's just a little bit kind of stickier and not quite as thick as a traditional cookie dough. So going onto the baking sheet can be a little bit messy. I like to use 2 like tablespoon, soup spoon type spoons to put the mixture onto the baking sheet. It can get a little sticky. Sometimes I have to kind of adjust it with my fingers, but it's still gonna be delicious. So let's get our dough put onto the baking sheet. With this particular recipe, depending on the size of cookie you want, you're gonna get between 16 and 24 cookies. I love a bigger, more robust cookie, especially since we're gonna place the Reese's Heart on top. So these are about 1.5 inch balls that I've done on the sheet. If you go down to like an inch ball, you'll get 24 cookies. Like I said, I like a larger cookie. So you can see these are about, like I said, about 1.5 inch balls on the baking sheet. So now our oven is preheated to 350. As I mentioned, we're gonna pop these in. We're gonna bake these from 9 to 11 minutes. So you can tell by looking at them, once they flatten out and they start to kind of crack on top a little bit, that's when you know they're done. But generally 9 to 11 minutes. Let's pop these in the oven. All right, so for us, the 11-minute cooking time is perfect. And as I mentioned, you can see the little cracking on top of the cookies. That's when you know they're done. So while they're nice and hot right out of the oven, we're gonna go ahead and put our Reese's White Chocolate Heart peanut butter filled hearts on top of each cookie. And the reason we do it right out of the oven is it kind of melts the bottom of the Reese's pieces onto the cookie. So we'll just go ahead and place those. Perfect. We're gonna give these a couple of minutes to sit on the cookie sheet. Then we're gonna transfer them to the cooling rack. And because we don't wanna melt the hearts that are on top of the cookies, after we put them onto the cooling rack, we're gonna pop them into the fridge for about 5 minutes just to kind of accelerate the cooling of the cookies. Like I said, we don't wanna over melt the hearts that are on top. Okay, so our cookies spent 5 minutes in the fridge just to kind of accelerate the cooling process. We brought them out, and the final step is we're going to sprinkle them with our pink sugar, decorative sugar sprinkles. So let's do that. Now we have our delicious red velvet Valentine's Day cookies. You know the final step, a taste. So delicious.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cameraman approved. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. And just a quick reminder, you know kind of our 3 guiding fundamentals with the Consummate Host and creating experiences for people. Those are warm welcomes, magic moments, and fond farewells. So just an idea, once you've made your delicious red velvet cookies, wrap them up, put them in some tissue, put them in a gift bag, and you've got the perfect fond farewell as your guests are leaving your Valentine's Day gatherings. So hopefully that gives you a little inspiration. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you for next week's episode.